Hariom everyone. Welcome to this class on Purusha Sukta. We will start with the chanting first. So I chant at my end, you can chant at your end. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karvavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. ॐ गणानां त्वा गणपतिगं हवामहे कविं कवीनामुपमश्रवस्तमं ज्येष्ठराजं ब्रह्मणस्पत आनशृण्वन्नोतिभिः सीदसादनम् ॐ श्रीमहागणपतये नमः सरस्वती नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणि विद्यारम्भं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुरेव परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः. So in this class on Purusha Sukta, we are covering the third part, the third portion, which is about the Virat Purusha manifesting. So when we have seen so far, we covered the meaning in some detail, right from the beginning to the end. We saw the whole of it, but I left out only the ninth part, which is the final part, and after that is just the closing. So when we saw this, maybe we decided that we need to go into a little bit more detail. So we are now covering all of this in some more detail from the point where uh, end of the second verse, Virajo Adi Purushaha Sajato Atyarichata Paschat Bhumi Matho Puraha. So how this Virat Purushaha comes about. And then, so therefore we'll just chant the third section for now and we'll continue with the class. यत्पुरुषेण हविषा देवा यज्ञमतन्वत वसन्तो अस्यासीत्यजम् ग्रीष्म इद्म शरदहविः सप्तास्यासन् परिधयः त्रिसप्तः समिदः कृताः देवा यद्यज्ञं तन्वानाः अबध्नन् पुरुषं पशुं तं यज्ञं बर्हिषि प्रोक्षन् पुरुषं जातमग्रतः. So we have seen that first of all, this Purushaha, this Param Purushaha, the ultimate reality, Satchit Anand Rupa, you can call him Brahman, you can call him by the word that we use in this sukta, which is Purushaha. So this Purushaha is both in its manifest and unmanifest realms. There in all parts of the reality. So in the unmanifest, he is of the pure form of Satchitanand, the three parts. And then in the Jagat part, in the fourth part, he is there as the ever-changing, ever-renewable, but never-ending world. This world that goes on in cycles of creation from one to the other. So when we see this universe, now we have seen that first, the manifestation comes about where all the different powers of the universe are created, right? This Purusha is first described, Sahasra Shisha Purusha, Sahasrakshas. So all the units of this manifest universe are controlled or manifest or they are pervaded by this Purusha. There is no smallest part of this universe where he is not present. That means he is the material as well as the intelligent cause of this universe. So also that he goes beyond Atyatishta Dashangulam and so on. So now when we see that this Virat Purusha, this Virat that has been manifest, the Virat is the whole universe, and that is the body of this Virat Purusha. We give a name for that in Vedanta as Ishvara. But here we are using Purusha as Virat. Right? So Virat is the Virat is the body or the substance of the universe, and within that, pervading as the consciousness is Virajaha, the one who rules over that, the one who shines through Virajaha. So that Virajaha is the entity who is pervading this universe in the form of the controlling power, the energy, the consciousness or whatever is going to move this universe. Without it, everything will collapse back into the initial nascent state, which we call pralayam, right? So this pralayam will also happen in cycles, but as long as the world is in the manifest form, this Purusha is going to be controlling everything from within. So both the created body of the universe and the consciousness that is running the universe is this Purusha. And through every being, he is present in our hearts as the inner controller, Antaryami. So when this Antaryami is present now, we how do we visualize the relationship between this Virajaha or this consciousness, or you can say just the Purusha also. How do you visualize the connection between the Purusha and the universe? What kind of relationship is there? That we have to understand, right? So this is the subject of all the darshan shastras and also mainly you can say Vedanta. So now when we look at this universal body, we call it Brahmand Deha. When this Brahmand Deha is there, how is it? What is its relationship with that Paramatma, that super soul, that highest soul? So that is understood in different ways. So we have to first see what are the possible relationships. What are the different relationships that are possible? So first is one is the relationship when two separate objects come together, right? This is one sambandha, one relationship. So these are two separate fingers coming together and they are looking as one unit, but actually they are separate. They will always maintain that separation. So when you just think about it, and then you will see that how does this sanyoga, this connection happen? Only when there is something that has parts, right? Two parts, avyavaha, two parts are there, or many parts are there. So then only that sambandha will be there when objects are with parts. So now these two are parts, these fingers. So therefore, coming together has brought about this connection or sanyoga or one part connecting to another. So now what is the rule about parts? The rule about parts in Vedanta, anything that is with parts is going to be definitely have a beginning and end. Anything that is with parts will always be destroyed at one time or the other, right? The rule of Vedanta, yad drishyam tad nashtam, yat nashtam tat mithya. It has no reality of its own, right? Anything that is visible will one day merge back into the source from where it came from. Therefore, this Brahmand Deha, this universal body of the Paramatma, is definitely not born out of Sanyoga. Because what will happen if that will mean that Paramatma will be with parts. Paramatma will be with parts. So if he is with parts, then one day he will also be destroyed. So this reality, being the ultimate reality, is not going to end. So therefore, this one is and can be safely ruled out. The only way we can put it into our understanding as parts is when we understand this as a projection that we'll see later on, right? So now, what is the next part? The next sambandha or parts, next connection you can say rather, next sambandha is of time. Right, Kala Sambandha. So, what is this Kala Sambandha? That if two objects are present at the same time, right? So, like Akbar was there in the same time as Tulsidas. They both are, you can say, contemporaries, if the word will use. So, they are samakalik at the same time. Therefore, their connection is of being there in the same time, right? So, now this Vishvatma Paramatma, he cannot again similarly have a connection with this manifest Jagat. Paramatma cannot have this connection of time, right? Because why? Because Vishwatma is formless, right? We saw formless. So formless, what will be the rule with formless? It cannot have parts, and it will also be nitya, right? It has to be beyond time, right? So therefore, for this Paramatma to be within time, right? This consciousness to be within time will make it again susceptible, again uh, it will not be able to maintain that nityatvam, right? That nityatvam is not possible if he appears at some time in time to connect with this Brahman and then goes away. So therefore, they cannot be samakalik. They cannot be have a connection or a relationship, rather you can say, is that of Kalik. Now the more critical one, the next, the usual that is understood by most theories or most formulas is that the relationship of this Paramatma and this Jagat or Brahman is of cause and effect, Karya and Karan. Right? This cause effect relationship is there. So, like, what is the cause effect relationship? Like milk and curd, or milk and you can say paneer. So, they have the relationship of Karya Karan. One is the cause, milk is the cause, and this curd is the effect, right? So, at the moment you see that curd, you know that one day it was milk, right? So this relationship again cannot be possible because once it turns into curd, it cannot go back to being milk, right? So therefore, this relationship is not there for one reason. This is one reason. This is one reason that it cannot be because it will change into one. The second being the change factor itself. If it has changed, it will not be the same. So memory will not be there. Memory will not be there, right? If I change from today to tomorrow, then I will not be remembering what happened to me in the past. So that is why in Gita also Bhagavan says that this Atma is there in the past and will always be in the future also. Because otherwise you would not know. When I remember what I experienced in as a child, then I remember that also when I am a grown up because the same Atma is pervading through me, even though my body has totally changed by now. All the cells have changed almost. Most of the cells you can say have changed. So my body is not even the same anymore. So what is it that is remembering, right? It is that consciousness which is giving that carrying that imprint of onto the memory, right? With the connection to the memory. Memory is in what part of the body? The sukshma shariram, right? Sukshma shariram, antakaran ki vritti hai. It is the vritti of the antakarana. So therefore, this relationship, cause effect relationship, is not possible logically. Now, what kind of relationship then is left? There is no kind of relationship that is left. We have covered the three main. So, therefore, because always when there is a relationship, then we can also infer. We can also infer one more important factor about relationships. What is that factor? Whenever there is a relationship, both of them will change, right? Both of them will definitely they undergo some kind of change when there is a relationship. So that means if Pura Paramatma must change or the Brahman must change, actually both must change. So just like when there is a marriage, the husband gets married to the wife, then the woman will change. The woman will change, not just in matter of relationships, but in matter of every kind of every kind of hopes, aspirations, the duties, everything will change. Same way with the man also, right? Man also will change. It is not possible that the man cannot change. The woman, the bahu or the bahu is not, changing. That is acceptable by the sasuma, but she will accept her son not to change. She will say after some time, "तुमने मेरे बेटे को बदल दिया." You have changed my son, but it is not possible. It has to be. It is a condition of this marriage, right? So whenever any kind of relationship happens, then you cannot deny the change that will happen. This sambandha will happen. So sambandha we say is dvinishtaha. Two people committing towards each other. So one changes, other also changes. It is not possible, right? So uh, also, we one more factor we have to remember about sambandha. It changes with time also. Whatever sambandha was there in the earlier times, it is not so in now also. Like earlier, there was a servant was kept at home, or maybe in a shop, the people used to keep what we call a munim accountant, right? He would look after them. In those days, the relationship between the servant and the master was a very close knit one. It was what we call a poshak sambandha. One will always look after the nutrition or the completion of all needs of this other person. So whenever that person was able to whenever that person was in need of something, he would be able to uh, ask the master, and master would somehow fulfill if he felt it was within the means. Secondly, also in the reverse manner, the servant also would be prepared to do a lot more. Today you give a person, someone who works under you, a certain duty, he will do that duty only. This is what I've been paid for. Earlier it was not that way, right? Earlier, anything that person working under is there, he would try his best. Why? Because this Poshya Poshak Sambandha builds up what we call the Vyashti Samashti relationship. What is Vyashti Samashti? We saw earlier the individual and the total. They complement each other, they nurture each other, they nourish each other. So the more the individual gives to the total, like we give to the Srishti, the more Srishti will also give back to us, right? So therefore, it was never a business transaction. So this sambandha would bring about a very nutritive relationship where both would have to be dependent on each other and would be committed towards each other. Then today's times have come, or you can say industrialization has come. So now this relationship is not there. So say in today, some servant will say, my wife is sick, or someone in my house is sick and has to go. Then you will not be able to let that person go easily, because you have built some duties for that person. But the moment you refuse, he will go anyway. He is not, because Poshya Poshak Sambandha is not there. So therefore, until that Sambandha is there, until that relationship is there, then only relationships are more beautiful. People will work for you. One of my friends tells, one of my aged uncles, he tells a long story about 50 years back. And so there was a student, there was an editor in the newspaper Statesman. And this editor was at that time, he was a Britisher. So under him, this sub editor was working. So this sub editor, when he was working, he would prepare all the editorials very beautifully for him, and then editor will take the credit. But of course, it is a teamwork. Now, at that time, he said that there was a big war that started. So he was asked to report on that war. And that war was a very, in those days, no, the government would control everything that had to be put out. So when he told him, this Britisher, he gave him these rules. So he had prepared this editorial. But then suddenly, in between, the Shraddh ceremony of his father came up. Shah ceremony. And so he asked for leave. So this Britisher, he said, you do your Shraddh tomorrow. So he said, why don't you understand? I can't do my Shraddh tomorrow. It has to be on the date, sir. Right? So this cultural gap, this relationship has changed with the times. So he ultimately left his job, and he spent the lifetime criticizing that paper, or being against that paper because of its beauties. So therefore, all the relationships that are built in this world, uh, they have to have a very close dependency, and this close dependency will do what? It will change, right? It will change both of them. But the moment this change is not total or not proper, then the relationship will be of business transaction. It will be like a business transaction. So there also, this relationship will change, both of them a bit less maybe, right? But ultimately the change will be there. And the change will be to the extent that they will be ready to, put the other person at loss. We say Nashya Nashak Sambandha there. And they will be able to, they will not care if the person bears a loss. So therefore, this Brahmanda relationship, it cannot be of that kind also. One thing we can say, the Sambandha is there, and Poshya Poshak Sambandha is there. That much we can say, but still it is not changing both of that. So how is that possible? Right? So because this cannot be changing. So in Mandukya Upanishad, in Mandukya Karika, Bhagwan Gaudapadacharya, the guru of Shankaracharya Bhagwan, he gave a rule. He gave a very beautiful rule. He said, Adha vante chayat nasti vartamane api tattatha. So what is that? Ada, the thing that is not changing, that is changing in the beginning and that is changing in the end. That means in between also it is non-existent. How? Like whenever we see a body, our body, it is here. So it was not there in the past. What does that mean? We call it Praga Bhav. Praga Bhav. So it was, this body was not there before being born. Praga Bhav. It was not there. Right? So that means, and then again in the future also it will not be there. We say Pradvansa Bhav, when it will be destroyed. Right? So there what he means to say is in between also this body is not there. Why? Because if it was not there in the beginning and not in the end, that means whatever is now is just an appearance. It is appearing only. So just like the elements come together and then they merge back. So therefore this body appears like a sentient being walking, moving around. But this is merely due to the illusion of the elements coming together. It has no separate existence of its own. The body is just the elements, right? So this is becomes brings us closer to this relationship. This brings us closer to this relationship, that this whole universe definitely then has to be a projection. It does not exist. It does not have any independent existence of its own. It is dependent for its existence on this Paramatma. That is the relationship. And therefore, Paramatma is not going to be changed by this relationship because it's just a projection. How can Paramatma change? If I imagine a story, does that story change me? The story doesn't change me. I remain the same. I don't enter the story or I don't become part of the story. Right? It is in my imagination. So in the same way, this whole universe is an imagination of the Lord, right? And a very strong imagination, though, not like our imagination. So this whole imagination of the Lord is producing this world of names and form. So how can we describe this? So there is a very beautiful verse by written by this Sureshwaracharya Bhagwan. Sureshwaracharya ji in his Vartika on the Brihadaranya. He says, Swarup Anhapahnena Pararup Sadrikshatam Pratibimbatvam eva ahau Khadag Darsh Taladivat. So he says, this what is this relationship between this Paramatma and Brahmanda? So he says, Swarupa Anaphanen. This Swarup will never be changing. The nature of the Atma will not change even a little bit. Even a little bit. Pararupa Sadrikshitam. Even though it is projecting a separate form. So, how is it? How is the projection being done? Pratibimbatvam, like a reflection in the mirror. Like a reflection in the mirror, this whole world of names and forms has been projected out of this Purusha. And how? Sadag, Darsh, Taladivat. So he names three reflecting mediums. Three reflecting mediums. What are these three reflecting mediums? Khadag. One is the sword. So sword is the one. Because the sharp blade of the sword also reflects, right? So one is Khadag. So that is the relationship between the Brahman and the universe. It is there also in this Dakshina Murti Stotram of Shankaracharya Bhagavan. So Rupam Drishyam Nagri Tulyam Nijantargatam Pasyanatmani Maya Bahiridvo Tulyam Chajat. So this all these verses, they are in effect telling us about this reflected nature of the universe. Just like my mind is reflecting consciousness and creating in itself an entity that this body is able to, through which it is able to move out. Through the reflected consciousness, my mind is moving about. Similarly, the Maya of the Lord, the Shakti of the Lord projects this whole universe of names and forms, right? This, and what about this Maya? Is it like something separate from Ishvara? No. It is the power of the Lord. Just like me and my power are inseparable for me, my energy, my power. Similarly, the Lord and his power are inseparable. They are one entity only. So Brahman and Maya are not separate entities. They are one and the same only. But we'll see Brahman and Maya more later. So now, what about this Pratibimba? So the first example is Khadag. Then the second is Adarsha. Khadag Adarsha Taladivat. Adarsha is the mirror. This we understand simply, right? And then tala. Tala means the still water of a pond. So there the reflection is there. So therefore, this is the way it has been compared. This is how he is visualizing this universe of names and forms as uh, the appearance upon Paramatma, right? So now, just if you look at this relationship now, this glass is in front of us, this mirror is in front of us. So, what is the relationship of it with your face? Does your weight even reduce even a little ounce after looking at the mirror? Has that mirror taken a part of you? No, you remain unchanging, right? Even though different forms may come into the mirror at times, different names and forms will keep coming as to whoever comes in front of the mirror. Of course, in the worldly mirror, the image is of different people, but in the case of the mirror of the universe, it is Ishvara himself who is taking up different names and forms from time to time, like wearing different robes or clothes, right? So you can apply the same one to yourself also. You can apply different robes and you will appear a different person in the mirror. So therefore, it will not change you little bit also, right? Therefore, in according to this rule of Vedanta, you have to be uh, when you are projecting something out of yourself, the change within yourself is not there. A little bit, not even a little bit. So, Sambandha is here, the relationship is there, but relationship is what we call Pararupa Sadrikshata. You're looking at something else as an image of yourself. That image is not at all connected you with you, connected in the sense that when you move, that image will move, and that is different. But you will not change, right? So your Swarupaha will not change. Swarupa Apahanena was what was said. But I am appearing inside that mirror. So therefore, that connection will is not that relationship is not of one of that will change, right? So now the example that is given, Khadag. Why Khadag is given? Why this example is given first? Because Adarsh we would have expected to be the logical one. So in the old days, no, people used to keep a sword in their house. A lot of people, most people would keep a sword in their house. And today, maybe Sardar Sikhs keep that. Not Hindus don't keep much. Though some in recent times people have and started encouraging because it is not a weapon of choice in these days. But so this talwar, when it was kept in the house, it needed to be tested. It needed to be tested from time to time. How would you test it? By cutting vegetables? No, no. So there you would they would take a uh, cotton strip, and take a cotton strip, and then you'll just throw it in the air, and they will slash it and cut it. So when this thin cotton slip would be you would be able to cut in one slash. That means the talwar is has a real sharp edge. Otherwise, it will just drag it. It will drag that. So therefore, that means that that is with the talwar. That is why it is called talwar. The tool they war karte the. They used to cut that thread with that sword, right? So therefore, the dristant or the example here is given of this talwar or khadak because even though shisha is the mirror is present, but talwar is used because just first of all the image. Let us look at the image. So in the sword you can see a image of yourself, right? So just like inside the buddhi or the intellect or the mind, there is a reflection of this chetanatma. Huh? The buddhi reflects the consciousness, right? So therefore, just like this khadag or talwar is very, very sharp, so buddhi also has to be very sharp. That then only the reflection will be sharp, right? So that is the reason why this example is given. So Kaach also can be used. Kaach is given, the glass is given in the second instant, and then the third is the taladivat, so talaha. So therefore, we understand clearly that this relationship is between the two of only uh, reflected and reflection. So the Bimb is called the original image or the original. Pratibimb is the reflection, right? So therefore, we have to keep this relationship, right? And then we saw next what was that he has then projected out of himself all the different all the different beings having different duties, right? The yes, Swarupa, you want to ask something?
Yes, sir. So tala meaning is what, sir? Tala.
Tala,
What?
tala actually is bottom, but here in talwar, because that tool is the thread, tool is the strip of cotton. So that tool, when you cut with that sword, it is called talwar. You make a impact. Var is to hit something. So from that is why in those days the talwar name came about. Okay. So now coming back to uh, this khadag, this transfer that we saw. So now the Lord has projected out of himself the different varnas, right? The different varnas. So Brahman, Kshatriya, Shudra, Vaishya, right? So we saw that. So all of these varnas, they represent this very fact of this consciousness projecting the world, as everything should be in an ordered way. Right, ordered way. Everyone should have their own duty, which will be assigned to them, and which will then accordingly they will work on that duty, and therefore the system that we saw earlier also is that of uh, that everything will move according to a set of laws. We call that a set of laws rhythm, right? Rhythm is the set of laws by which this whole manifest universe is brought about. So according to rhythm, everything moves and everything projects, and according to that everything will function in this universe. So therefore this sambandha or this relationship with that is of this rhythm maintaining the order by, but it is actually overall a projection only. Right. So now what about this universe appearing in this how big? How big is the universe? We think the universe is so big, right? But Ishvara, that Chetan Paramatma is infinite. So there is no reflection. So how is that consciousness able to enter into that? We can see that in the form of any kind of reflection also. If you go early in the morning and you see the grass, you will see small droplets. And if you observe carefully in that droplet itself, you can see the whole sky and the whole area around. The reflection will be there. So how can that small drop capture? Because of this power of reflection only. The power of reflection is able to capture the large in the small only. So this consciousness also is able to enter into this Brahmanda as the force that will control it. So this Brahmand we say is therefore able to hold on to this consciousness, or is able to latch on to this consciousness as the force within, right? So whatever is visible there is then controlled by this power, right? Using what? Using the rule. So now, therefore, what should be our sadhana? We can learn from that is that when I close my eyes, I can see what the movement of what? My thoughts, right? So whenever the thoughts are moving, that means they are the changing reality. And what is the unchanging reality? The unchanging reality is the consciousness behind all of this, right? Unchanging reality. So that unchanging reality is to be attained through all the sadhanas, karma, upasana, and jnana. So, whenever I look at something moving, whenever I see any motion in the universe, I see it as karma, right? So, this karma is due to me. This karma, without me, the karma will go away, right? And then, whenever I see any upasana, any lower form taking the help of the higher form, then I can see that this very small body is run by this huge consciousness, infinite consciousness. Therefore, by upasana, any kind of smallest of beings can become one with that highest being. And then Jnanam is obviously known to all of us, that the knowledge of the oneness with this Paramatma or this Brahman is at the level of essence, at the level of essence. And what is that essence? The essence is such, the nature, this as nature of Satchit Anand, or I am that reality, existence. I am that consciousness, and I am of the nature of joy. Right. So whenever we realize this sambandha with the Ishvara Paramatma, then we can easily see that the part that is moving, changing will disappear after some time. It has no eternal reality of its own. So therefore, what is the eternal reality? There is a consciousness within me itself, which I can perceive any moment from changing time to time. I can perceive that reality, and therefore this reality is going to take me to my own nature at the highest level. So therefore I cannot separate these three. Some people say karma kanda is different, upasana kanda is different, but if you are looking at the reality as a whole, then materializing the endless powers of this reality is karma kanda. Through karma kanda, you can, through the nature of through doing a homa or a havanam, you can create endless objects in this universe. You make a decision, or you make a visualization, that I want to create this, and you start working towards it, and it will be materialized in proportion to your effort. Right? Anything that you want to materialize, it will materialize in proportion to your effort. So the time may taken may be more, but you have to keep doing it, right? So in Gita, Bhagavan says, Abhyasena and Vairagyena cha grihate. So don't be tied down to objects so that they slow down your progress, but keep on working. Abhyas, abhyas. Kabir Das ji says, Kadat kadat abhyas te jadmati ho sujan, rasri avat jat se til par सिल पर पड़त निशान. So when that rope keeps moving on that stone, it will create an imprint. Similarly, our efforts should never cease. Our effort should be continuous in whatever we choose to do. And in doing karma, to realize that this power for this karma is coming from that reality only, from my consciousness only. So that will help me drop my ego and not get me trapped in the samsara. So even while doing karma, we call it karma yoga. While doing karma also, I can be one with my essential nature. And then same thing with upasana. Anywhere where I feel that I do not have the requisite power, energy, then I give more to the universe, to all the people around me. I serve them. And then slowly their powers will come together with me. Or you can say the devtas will come to my aid. So that is upasana. Upasana, I manifest through bringing the powers of the universe in synchronization with me. Once they are synchronized with me, I am able to once they synchronize with me, I am able to mobilize them to do more larger work. You see, a lot of people, they do big things. They create big buildings, they create big entities. So why? They cannot do it alone. Some king built the pyramids. How many people were needed? Thousands and thousands of people worked so many years to complete that. So bringing together so many blocks. So we need to bring the samashti, the totality within us, and that can only be done when we also contribute to that totality. So that is the essence of upasana. And then same thing with jnanam also. When I see myself in everyone, my love comes out as without any conditioning, without any conditions. And when that love happens, people naturally come back to you. They give you, say a kind word to anyone, and he will be favorably disposed to you for a lifetime. Hmm. Uh, as long as you keep repeating that, right? So whenever we have that bhava, that should be born out of our knowledge, of our jnanam. Once our jnanam gives birth to that bhava, then all the people around me will forever be it takes a second to say something harsh. Whenever we meet someone, whenever we talk to someone, just we feel irritated by something, because everyone has a different nature, right? Someone may be interested in art, someone science, someone in some other field, and so their interest will clash with yours. Even husband and wife, Why do they fight after some time? They are forever connected. They love each other. They understand each other inside and out. They cannot live without each other. But because everyone will have certain differences of opinion, differences of view, there might come about a clash. So why not turn a clash into something synthetic? You want to do something, I want to do something. Let's combine and build something beautiful. That is the way of the universe. So that is how Jnanam works. Jnanam works in realizing the unity in diversity, realizing that everyone has different capability. And that is what our rishis used to do. This Varna Ashram Dharma, they saw through the eye of the Lord that everyone has been given different capabilities. And accordingly, a duty was assigned to them. At the stage of the Brahmacharya ashram, everyone would go to the Gurukul. Initially, everyone was going to the Gurukul, even girls. So if you read in the works of Dharmapal, he has given these figures. Then also, I gave you a book name earlier also. It's about Pranavavad. It also describes how girls were also, of course, girls had a longer education period because after coming from the from this Gurukul, they would learn the techniques of managing the house from their mothers. And that would add another 5 to sometimes even 10 years. So therefore, a lot of education was given to girls. Girls were also very, very proficient in all other fields, also mathematics, sciences, everything. So through this Gurukul system, the education was imparted to all of our children, and then they were let out into the world to do this. So the Brahma Jnanam that we are talking about, it was given at the child stage only. Then only when he becomes a Grihastha, he sees that oneness in everyone around him. You go to old villages, or you go to the villages, any village, even now. People there are so connected. Any small function comes up, they will all contribute towards that. Right. So in Punjab, whenever there is a marriage, we would go out, the people would go out with the light and they would go in the night time to all the houses and all the houses would contribute for the marriage or any other function. So in the city, asking even a small thing appears like a burden to anyone who has been asked. So once this oneness is perceived within us, we are perceiving the oneness of that Purusha only, right? So therefore, this relationship of Brahmanda and Paramatma, the moment we bring into our life, then we will bring it into bring much beauty into our life, right? So what about what should we not bring? We have to bring oneness, we have to bring uh, good thoughts, but ultimately, what are we creating? Whatever we are creating, it will lapse away in time, right? Nothing is permanent. So realizing that also, we have to keep doing a kalpana or a visualization to create something, but ultimately cut our lower kalpanas, right? What is the lower kalpana? A lower kalpana or the nikrishta kalpana we call it is that something that brings a thought of smallness within me, right? So there is a beautiful line by Tulsidas ji. So here he says, "Main kutil khal kami." So he says, I am kutil, I am crooked and evil, and I am desirous of objects that I shouldn't be desiring of. So is that a good desire? It is not a good desire. So why? Because when we do that within our mind, we are creating that image for ourselves, right? So then you will say, then why Tulsidas ji has said he's such a great soul, right? So we cannot compare ourselves. When we realize that about this kalpana that has been done by Tulsidas, he is saying what? A bhakta can be feeling sad about, no, he's going to the temple, and in between he thought, let me buy some vegetables for my house and I'll take it. For him, even that thought, a second spent away from the Lord, is like feeling that he is not good or not unworthy. It is not like our fault. We think whenever we have done someone a big wrong, or we have hurt someone a lot, then also we try to reduce our fault. In fact, we don't admit also. We don't admit our fault. So therefore, never bring a Nikrishta Kalpana to your mind. When you reach the level of Tulsidas, you can bring, because kutilta will be limited to, just not looking someone's way. So therefore, we have to bring cut out the Nikrisht Kalpana, and therefore we will then be able to go on to the higher Kalpana. So, uh, in this Brahmand story also, there is a story about Shiva and the Halahal. If you have heard about it, right? You have heard about the Sagar Manthan, right? So Sagar Manthan represents all of these. What are our Nikrisht Kalpana? So what harm they cause, and what are Utkrisht Kalpana? So when we are interacting in the world, Sagar Manthan is what the Mandrachal Parvat. That Parvat is used to churn the ocean. What is the ocean? The ocean is our mind, right? Ocean is our mind. The mind, when it is churned, it brings out beautiful jewels, right? All beautiful jewels come out, beautiful thoughts come out. So whenever we visualize good things, then beautiful thoughts also come out. So therefore, these thoughts then help us to be more creative, or more, we can say, we can visualize and create more beautiful objects in our universe, right? So there now, uh, in this churning, sometimes we also go into what we call is the Nikrisht Kalpana, or lower thought. So just like in that Sagar Manthan, what was the negative thing that came about? Halahal, right? That poison that came out. So in that halal, that poison that came up. What was said about this? When the moment it came about, everything started dying down. Right? Everything felt like it would collapse. So all were worried. So Vishnu Bhagwan was told that what can we do about it? So he said, why don't you give it to Shivji? So Shivji will not be affected, and he anyway lives in Shamshan, so he will not mind. So therefore, the Devtas then went to Shivji, and then he drinks that halal. So now, when he was about to drink that halal, Parvati Ma came up to him and he said, why you want to do it? Why do you want to do it? Why do you want to take this risk? She was feeling bad about it. So he said, don't worry. I will not take it down. I will keep it in between. I will keep it in my throat. Right. So that halal represents in a way the poison that has to be there. We have to keep that poison in this place only, in the throat only. Any negativity, keep it there. Don't throw it out. Don't throw it in. The moment you throw it out, you spoil your relationships with people in the world. And the moment you take it in, you spoil yourself. Right? So therefore, any negativity, we have to hold it in our throat. Don't let it out. The moment we let out any negative thought or any wrong thought, it is going to cause us any problems. So this outside world is what? Brahmanda, the Brahmand. And the inside is what? Inside is the what we call the inner consciousness, or the inner being, or the Vishnu. So Vishnu is the creator now. So outside his projects, outside world is his responsibility. And the inside world is the inside world is the Antar Jagat. So Antar Jagat is responsibility of what? The Antar Jagat is the responsibility of Maya, of Devi Ma, of Shakti. Antar Jagat. So therefore, in that story, Vishnu ji was uh, offering the poison to uh, Shivji, right? Because he wanted to protect the outer world. That is his responsibility. And Devi Ma was telling him not to drink because the inner world is his responsibility, right? So therefore, Shivji chose the middle way. Therefore, he chose the middle path, and therefore, uh, this outside world, we call it the projected world, or the upadhi. And the inner world we call the upahit, the one who takes up the upadhi. So in the case of the individual, what is that? In the case of the individual, it is the jivatma. He is the upahit. He is taking up. He is being conditioned to think of himself as a being functioning only through this body, and the upadhi is the body here. Similarly, for the Lord, the upadhi is the whole universe, and the upahit, or is the Ishwar Chaitanyam. Right. So once this manthanam is done of the mind, we have to be very careful to take the positive and give them out to the world. to keep all our positives and give them out to the world, create them out for the world. Take the negatives, hold it in between, don't let them go inside and don't let them go outside. And what about the inside part? Inside is our consciousness, inside is my essence, and that essence is what we have to hold, and that should not change. And that should not change, that is represented by what? Nirvikalpa Samadhi. So in Nirvikalpa Samadhi, we are not letting the outside world change us. That is why the poison is there in the middle part, right? So therefore, we have seen so far that this cause effect relationship is in fact actually one single reality. In the case of most worldly objects, the cause is different from the effect, right? Cause is different from the effect. So one is the cause, other is the effect. So just like milk and curd, they are separate entities, right? Even though from one the second is born, right? But in the case of this world, the Paramatma, everything is one single reality. So therefore, this change that we see is not an actual change. The change that we see in the worldly things, or as I gave the example of husband or wife or anyone connecting together, we change each other. In Ishvara does not change, right? So now what about this? Why does this duality appear? This duality is there. So it is very difficult to accept that there is no duality away from us. We are so much engrossed in this duality. The duality can be mainly twofold. There are two kinds of duality. So one is the state change in the same person with time, and the other is of objects. So therefore, uh, there are two objects separately existing, duality. They have a relationship between each other, that is duality. And then the duality is within me or any being. So today I am different, tomorrow I'll be different. So there is duality. So that these are the two kinds of duality that we see in the universe. So also in the anything that you consume also, no, in the food also that you eat, that there is also duality, right? So whenever you eat some food, how you eat it, that also in that also there is duality. Hmm. So let us say a rasgulla, and that rasgulla is very tasty to you. Hmm. Then you take a cold ice cream. The rasgulla is normally warm. So take it with that cold ice cream, eat it with that. It is a totally different taste, right? You can have the ice cream first, and after that, the rasgulla, it will have totally different. Or you have a rasgulla after a hot coffee. It will give you a totally different taste. So whenever that same food will taste different to us depending on the combination with which we are eating or the condition in which we are eating. So therefore, this duality is there in all the objects of this world. So what does Gita say? The Gita says Nistraygunya Bhavarjuna. So to grasp our essence, we have to rise above the three gunas. But in the same verse, Bhagavan says, hold on to Sattvam. So hold on to Sattvam. So what is Sattvam? Sattva is the higher of the three gunas. So one way, in one line, he's saying, be beyond the three gunas, Nistraygunya, leave the three gunas. And other line is saying, the hold on to Sattva Guna. Why? Because whenever we are in this world, this is our rule, this is the guidance given to us by Bhagavan. So uh, I am one with Paramatma. I am seeing this manifested world, which is appearing different from me, yet it is within me. And so, because it is appearing different to me, I am affected by it. I am affected by it, and because of the effect it has upon me, I I develop within me certain emotions. Right, those emotions become the cause of my being trapped in this world forever. Right. So now, when what are these? When are these emotions binding? When are these emotions binding? When I hold on to rajas, uh, I need to keep doing something, activity, or tamas. But when I'm in sattva, then what happens? I am holding on to the knowledge aspect. Sattva is knowledge, jnana pradhan. So jnana pradhan. So therefore, when I in this world can remain in sattva, then I can remain forever connected to my true nature, even though I am functioning in the world. Even though objects are appearing in front of me, they will cease to affect me. So the this is the feeling that is given to us by this. So I'll just bring us back to the Purusha Sukta once again. I'll just share it again. So now Lord has taught us what? How the Lord has manifest this universe, how we can interact with this universe without being affected by it, how the whole world will again merge back into me. So that will come from Tasmad Virada Jayata Virajo Adipurusha Sajato Atyarichyata. So even though he is born, he is able to mentally separate himself from the creation. Jataha Atyarichyata. Sorry. He exceeds whatever has been born. Right. So now we saw this part also, Yat Purushi and Havisha. When we surrender to this universe, we move with the flow of the universe, we develop an affinity with the universe. Then all the divine powers come to my aid. Deva Yagyam Tanvata. These devas, by this Srishti Yagyam that is happening, I am able to move the devas with me. Right. So now, what is the other reality that I have to hold on to? The change of the seasons. Vasanto asya sidya jamma, Grishma idma sharadhavihi. So, in all the changes of the seasons, I have to hold on to the thought of my reality that I am that Purusha only, that Purusha and me are one. Vasanto. uh, so, how will I treat that Vasanta, that Vasant Ritu as Ajyam, right? As the free flowing Ghritam, the free flowing clarified butter, right? So, let me be the fuel for the Lord. I saw a very beautiful video some days back. It's about a Hare Krishna Bhakta, and he was being debated by a Christian missionary. Hmm. So he said one very beautiful thing there. He said, uh, the Christian missionary said, "Do you believe in Jesus our Lord?" So the Hare Krishna Bhakta said, "Yes, I believe in Krishna. I believe in Krishna also, and I believe in Jesus also. Jesus is my Lord and Savior also." He said, "But your religion does not accept that." He said, "No. Who said so? We believe any message that is brought from the divine sources, if it matches with our belief, then we are willing to accept that." But then he says, "Do you also follow that?" He said, "How are you saying that? How can you say that?" He said, "Okay, let us create a test." This it's about this Vasanto Asya Sidhya Jam. So he says, uh, let us say hypothetically that Jesus appears in front of you. Hmm. And this Jesus appears in front of you, then what will you go or say to him or do? What will you do? So the missionary says, I'm not being derogatory towards missionary. Yeah, he has his own concept, right? So it's how we see beauty in everything. So now this person, he says, I will go up to the Lord and say, thank you for being my Lord and Savior. So now this Hare Krishna fellow says, very nice. But is that all? He said, yes, about all. So he says that means your reality is built is upon you as separate from Jesus, and he's saving you, and that is only your relationship. So he said, okay, then what will you say? So Hare Krishna guy says, I will say, I am here to serve you, my Lord. What can I do for you? That is the beauty of this tradition, that we see of ourselves as how we can serve ourselves, even how I can burn myself up for my Lord. May I become the Ghritam. So Ghritam will what? When it burns, it gives you a clarity. It gives you a clarity in your thing. Just sit in the front of Home Agni sometime, sit down and meditate, and you will feel that fire coursing through you. It will create clarity. Something that you have read maybe some days back or a day or two back, it will suddenly appear with a new kind of vision before you. These sadhanas are not just for doing something. A homa is not just for asking something from the Lord. When you meditate in front of the Homa Agni, then that clarity. So Ajyam or that pure ghee represents clarity in knowledge. So therefore, I see myself as changing with the weather, as this entity, this body who's changing with the weather, and yet I see myself also as a servant of the Lord, or as someone who says, "What can I give for you? What can I do for you, my Lord?" So then Grishma Idma, I am ready to become Idma. I am ready to become the fuel for you. And Sharad Havihi, I am ready to give the offerings of all the in Sharad is winter, right? In winter, what you give the Havi? Something that smells good. It has a beautiful smell. So when we do a Homa Agni, the smell permeates the room and we feel that goodness. So may the beauty of my behavior be offered to you so that it can expand manifold. We want to rule out the negativities, and therefore the offering of ourselves into this Ishvara, into this Srishti Yajna is about giving our deficiencies up. The what I said about earlier about the Nikrishт Bhav and holding on to the higher bhavas. The higher bhava is seeing myself as one with that higher reality, and so therefore, what distances me from that? My desires. So I give up my desires. I give up my ego. I give up my sense of doership because Atma is akarta. Right? Atma is akarta. Ishvara is never a doer. So therefore, then what will he open for me? What will the Lord open up for me? I've seen this earlier, but we are repeating because we are going into some more detail. So saptasya san paridhaya. Paridhi, paridhi is a boundary, right? And he has bound the world in the seven lokas, the seven boundaries of the earth. They are the seven boundaries, right? Right now, we feel ourselves confined to one boundary only, the physical loka, Prithvi loka or Bhu loka. But with sadhana, with intensity, with internal with giving up our limitations, we can move on to the seven lokas. We can travel mentally between the seven lokas. In meditation, you can see all those different lokas, upwards, lowers, and sideways. Because the moment we give our lower nature, then we open ourselves to a receiving rather. We open ourselves to a receiving. So therefore, then all these, the whole universe of names and forms, Tri Saptaha. So Tri Saptaha, I explained, the three streams, Satchit Anand, from which the seven sub-streams are born. They represent all the material and non-material objects of the world. So from Sat, Prakriti, Mahat, and the five elements. From Chit, Jeev, Ahankar, and the five pranas. And then from Anandaha, where is Anandaha located? Mind, right? I enjoy through my mind. So Man, Buddhi, and the five sense organs. I enjoy through my sense organs, right? So these three saptaha become samidaha. I can choose to burn them. I can choose to give them up at any moment. I enjoy them, and yet I am willing to give them up. So that should be my relationship with the Lord. I should be forever be able to give up all the things that I enjoy at a moment's notice. Huh? And then what will happen? Deva yat yagyam tanvanaha. Then the divine, when I give up, then the samashti comes to my aid. We saw earlier also, no? When I give to the society, then the society comes to my aid and I create something bigger. Right? Then the devas come to my aid and they help. Tanvana is tanoti, is weaving together. So when these elements of the through the with the elements of the world, I can weave them together to create something beautiful. And then what will this weaving do to me once I bring the samashti with me? Once I do this job of creation, abadnan purusham pashum. So there is a pashu within us. All the nikrisht bhavas, all the lower tendencies, the animal tendencies, that abadnan, that is released. The bond is broken and it is cast away from me. So Purushaha cast away this Pashu Vrittis from my mind. And then Tam Yagyam Barhishi Prokshan. So the prokshan is the water I pour, just like in Christianity also they pour that holy water, no, to purify something. So therefore, similarly, Barhishi has two senses. One is it is the kushagra, the blade of grass with a very sharp edge, right? So my intellect becomes very sharp. right? And then proction is a cleansing. My inner sense is cleansing. The moment I give my desires up for those of doing something for the world, then I am never caught. Karma phalam doesn't adhere to me, right? Whenever I'm doing something for someone else, then karma phalam is I don't get you into the cycle of karma phalam. Because I'm not asking from myself. I'm doing it for the universe. So that purification happens. Yeah. So Purusham Jatam Agratah. So this has two senses. One we saw earlier about this Purusha being the firstborn of creation. But Agratah means also becoming in front. Right? So I become the front runner in the race of the universe. I become a leader of men. I become the person whom everyone will follow. Right? So therefore, we have to similarly lead ourselves, lead our lives in this universe, in this yajna bhava, with the spirit of surrender, with the spirit of vairagyam, with the spirit of giving up, with the spirit of love towards everyone in the being, with the spirit of bringing everyone with me together, and with the spirit of move forward with them. And once I move forward with them, I cast away my lower tendencies, I cast away my pashu bhava, and I therefore move on to the bhava of being the leader of men. I am the front runner always. So this way, this is how this Purush Sukta is leading us to a more beautiful visualization of life, or how to live this life in total freedom. I am in moksha while in this life also, right? So we'll discover of this lot of this in the next class. I've maybe exceeded the time today. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om.